for people that don't know you, we know you have given interviews and whatnot, but for the spirit of the conversation, for people that are just like, oh, who's Daud Suleman? Just a bit background about Daud. I know we have seen you in sports. We have seen you in take music sometime. Briefly, who is Daud Suleman?
Daud Suleman is it's a guy that grew up in Chilinde, just a few kilometers out of where we are
Yeah, exactly.
in Lilongwe. I went to Chuoko Primary School. I grew up in the neighborhood where we used to play a lot of sport, a lot of football. And because Chilinde is just outside Kamuzu Barracks, I got exposed to a number of sporting disciplines at a very early age. So I could play volleyball, I could play basketball, I could play handball, I could play hockey, and I could also play football. So sport was a key element as I was growing up. I went to Chipasula Secondary School. Yeah, school was fun, but sports was more fun at Chipasula. So I pretty much became more serious and more focused on basketball. So I played a lot of basketball to the extent that I had an opportunity to go to the States. So here is a kid that grew up in Chilinde, doesn't have a passport, has never seen the entrances of an airport, and there is someone who is saying, "No, you have to come to America and play basketball." So I was excited. I remember myself and my mother, we boarded a minibus for me to catch my first flight. So.
Wow.
Dropped off at Lumbadzi and walked from that junction to the airport. Yes.
Wow.
So jumped in, and that was the beginning of the next chapter. So sport and basketball really played a very key role in my growing up. I think I learned a lot of discipline. I learned a lot of perseverance. I learned a lot of you could be losing a game, but until the last second, that's when you either win or you lose. So basketball taught me, to stick in there. Basketball taught me to always compete fairly, and basketball taught me to also, be present and be there. You must show up. Don't just come, but you must show up. So when I went to the States, I found out that I was the shortest person in our team.
What?
And wearing size 12, 13, that was the smallest shoe on the team. So I'm coming from Malawi, where I was the tallest and I was the biggest. I was playing center. I go to the States, and I'm pretty much the shortest person. So now I have to transition from playing center to now relocate to point guard, because now I can't fit in. I now have to redistribute the ball, and I have to acquire a new skill. So that in itself was eye-opening in the sense that I just grew up playing basketball because we watched basketball on tape. We watched other people play basketball, but didn't really know that there was a technical side to the game. The way you handle the ball, the way you can pass the ball. You don't just throw the ball. The way you run, the way you position, what those lines are meaning on the court. So it was a new experience I had to learn. And again, you see that I was, instead of that being a very happy moment, I realized that, I am now in the deepest end. Now I have to swim, and I have to learn the game. I have to reposition myself. So many a times that in life, you get thrown into new circumstances, into new areas that you have to reprogram yourself. So for me, it was a new challenge. I was like, okay, let me learn. So I started playing point guard. But at that point, it was a 4-year scholarship to play basketball in the States. But when I looked at my age, because at that time I was around 21, and the other kids were 16, 17, and they're bigger, faster, taller than me, and they had a bigger shot at basketball than I was. And by that time, I already had made some progress in the field of IT and computer sciences. So I opted to come back after a year. So my coach could not believe it, that here's a kid from Africa
There's an opportunity to play in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
US.
and he's in the US and he's saying, no, I want to go back. So when he asked me, I told him that I had thought that there was an opportunity I could do a school in Malawi at a master's degree level. And I thought it was a better option for me to come back than to stay in America, play basketball, and pretty much waste 4 years. Because at the end of those 4 years, I wouldn't have made it into the NBA, or I would have made it maybe to the other pro leagues. But 4 plus 21 would be 25.
Right,
At 25, you must be at the prime,
of the
not
career.
not graduating from college and then going into the career.
Yeah.
So I came back and immediately joined Malawi Institute of Management, MIM, in their second cohort for University of Debe, a strategic management master's degree. So I was the youngest kid in that class, I think at about 22, and I was the only one who didn't have a car. And I was the only one who, I think at that time, I was an intern at Opportunity International Bank
Okay.
when it was just starting as Usuawata. So I was just helping part-time IT. Went through that course and did a number of IT certifications. Eventually rose from being an intern at Opportunity Bank to being the chief information officer for the bank by the time that I left. And then I went to Blantyre. I joined Nico Holdings. I was the chief technical officer for Nico Holdings under Nico Technologies. Got seconded to NBS Bank, where I was chief information officer for about 2 years. And then I came back, started to put up a few things of my own. And then now here we are. Now I'm at Macra as the director general. So I think briefly that is who this guy is.
That's interesting because I've known you as a person as Daudi, and like I said, I think most of the places or avenues that we heard about Daudi was basically sports, which was basketball, and then I think it came to sports management when you went, I think, to was it Suleman?
Suleman as vice president.
As vice president, yeah.
Yes,
So
yes,
Daud there, and I think apart from those that I think followed your journey when you started your own things now, when you started, was that Nyimbo Zat?
Nyimbo Music Company.
Nyimbo Music Company.
Yes,
That's when we actually linked, oh, Daud is an IT person. But I think for most people, like maybe my age or younger than me, and a lot of other people that haven't had an interaction with you, saw Daud as a sports personality or somebody who's just in sports. And to think that you also have been through all these corporate avenues with OIBM, with NBS, and with Nico, I think a lot of people don't know that.
No, true. I get that a lot. I think mostly it's perception. People, when they read about you in the newspapers and you're always associated with football, for instance, and we're at a time that we still regard football or sports as as a lesser discipline. Therefore, people that are in that circle, they're not people that are serious with
they
their life.
They don't have a serious career, so they opt to go sports.
To go to sports because there's a whole lot of Kutola Kobwe or thugs and vandalism and all sorts of things. Therefore, if you're around football, you are part of that. But it's different. As I mentioned, growing up in Chirinda, I played a lot of football, and I've been around football for the longest of time. I didn't play competitive football, but all my friends have always been around football. So for me to get to be vice president of Suleman, which was against people that were already in Suleman at that point in time, you can imagine that even at the votes, the entire executive of that outgoing Suleman committee was voting. And we had about 16 teams, and each team had 2 votes to give in. And I got 70% of that vote. So it was it was a surprise to a lot of people, but to the people within football, because I was already one of them, they knew me. So I wasn't a stranger that has walked into the room. I was just one of those guys that now publicly people would now associate with football. So I came in as vice president, And about 2 years later, I went into Football Association of Malawi, which is like an upgrade coming from an affiliate
Yeah.
to go to the main body. And I went there unopposed. And I think I'm the first candidate to ever win a farm election without facing stiff
And
competition. Yeah. So that has exposed me to a lot about sports management. I've been lucky to attend FIFA congresses, CAF congresses. I've done a lot of work with CAF at Africa level. I was one of the what they call game coordinators that would manage a whole game. So I've traveled around Africa on football duties, and I have also a bigger network of friends around football. So yes, football is great. It's just that it's unfortunate that our game is not developing to the next level. But at a continental level, as well as globally, football is becoming serious business.
Wow. Okay. What do you attribute all this thing, the steps that you take, from sports to all the other things, of which would go to the other things, but going into Slum, for example,
Mm.
there are people that have been there. They have always been in football management and all that, and you just came in and you became the vice president. Is it how you interact or relate with the other people, or do you think there's something about you and leadership that maybe is just in you, that when you show up, everybody's like, oh, it's just going to be like, I think he should be
He should be VP.
Yeah.
No. I think it takes a whole lot more than that. I think as I mentioned, I've been around a whole lot of football personnel and football people. But most importantly is that I always speak my mind and I always make my intentions known. I believe in setting the course right. So that there are no hidden tricks along the way, and no one gets surprised. So when I started campaigning to be the vice president, I was speaking the vision that I would like to contribute. At that time, the president was the late Bottoman, and I did reach out to him and I explained to him exactly what I thought the Super League could achieve and what it could do, and why I was the right person to partner with him as a president. And that was the same message that I consistently took. So I think communicating intentions and setting your tone from the word go has been one of the key things that I always try to do, and that has given me the leverage to be able to stand on platforms where I'm able to articulate what it is that I'm thinking and how we're going to do and how we're going to go about it. And that I think it helps me to get buy-in, and in the process, it makes certain things to be easy, other than to come in with a different perspective and a different narrative, and then change it along the way, and it kind of it creates discomfort in people. I know by being very upfront about the tone, you're always shaking the system. You're always shaking status quo, and it's not easy. You saw what happened when we started revoking radio licenses, the uproar, and the bitterness, and people not understanding what it is that's happening. But 12 months down the line, today everyone seems to have understood.
Understanding now.
Yes, it's that. Oh, okay, this is what's happening, and this is why things are happening. So you see that new developments that are happening around the regulatory space and the regulatory actions that we're taking. When we follow through social media comments and feedback, you see that the general public seems to be now on our side. Now they've understood that what we're doing is in good faith, because we set that tone from the onset and we've stayed on that. So we haven't flip-flopped. We haven't changed anything. The line was drawn, and it is that line that we're consistently going after. So that, I think, is one of the attributes that I think I use effectively. It's never easy, but I think it makes life easy in the long run, and it helps open certain doors.